All right, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam. It is Thursday, June 12th. I'm still trying to get caught up here with the videos. And it is what it is. I mean, if you're going to get mad about it, get mad. I don't care. Let's see. So, I get comments on videos that I shot, whatever it was a couple weeks ago. I don't know where we are today in terms of when the video was shot that you're watching today. But this delay is helping me in other ways. The original reason I did it was to put a buffer between what I was doing, just in case that landlord, that slumlord, was watching. But I think, let's see, what's the updates for now? I got a TV. Somebody on Facebook Marketplace delivered the TV to my house, and I already had a TV mount clamped to one of my wire shelving units, and it wasn't 100% smooth, but it went together pretty. I mean, within 10 minutes I was, sitting in front of it looking at it. And last night I chilled in my little lounge chair and watched some stuff, and it was nice to just relax before going to bed and not having to set up a laptop and do all that. I have a ghetto extension cord going from the TV, I'm looking at it now, into this kitchen here, with two power strips daisy chained together because I don't even have an extension cord. I don't even own one. So it's just another example of when you're starting from zero, when you're 49 years old, things that you would normally have around the house by that time when you're starting. Imagine a tornado came through the trailer park and destroyed everything in its path, and you lost your home and everything in it, and the smallest piece left was about this big. Like everything was completely destroyed. You're starting from zero. That's where I'm at. So, let's see. I'm going to get into some answering comments. And what was today I'm just going to talk about some comments people have left. So, but the updates are, I got a TV, I made some progress putting the house together. The fancy couch that was $150, not a couch, it's a love seat. I probably missed the boat on that one. The Facebook ad's been marked as pending. So it just wasn't meant to be, and that's fine. I went and looked at my money yesterday, and I got that all squared away and organized again. If I go 2 weeks without doing it, if I go a week without doing it, I'm completely lost. Not 100%. I have a general idea of what's going on, but I need to sit down about once a week, organize it, project out what my bills are for the remainder of the month. And I basically go from rent payment to rent payment and just make sure that the number one most important bill that gets paid is rent, and then I'm going to be able to pay it on time. Everything hinges around that right now. When you were homeless for 6 months and then 5 months, whatever, living with a friend for a few months and then get back out on your own, rent. That's your fucking life cycle right now. Obviously, I have made a number of comments about homeowners don't own their home. And I'm going to make a whole lot more about comments about that in this video today. So, stay tuned. If you want to get all triggered and get angry and lose your fucking minds because I tell you once again that you don't own your home, have at it. Do I want to be a so-called homeowner? Fuck yeah. I want to own, quote unquote, own my own home. And if I'm lucky enough, there are places in America where you can own land and you can own a house where you don't have to pay a property tax. You don't have to pay a government landlord an annual fee in order to keep your home. You don't have to even get permission to do stuff to your home. There are places where you can buy a piece of land and a house or build something where there's no zoning laws, nobody's showing up telling you what you can and can't do and having to get permission, which is, what do you have? If I want to do something to this place, who do I have to call? I have to call the landlord. I have to get permission. When you want to do something to your house that you supposedly own, who do you have to call? You have to call the government. You have to call the homeowners association. You have to get permission from everybody else. If it was yours, why the fuck can't you do what you want with it? And I know I'm going to get a fucking 1,000 comments about this. But we're going to get there. I'm going to address some of these comments. But the first comment that I'm going to randomly look for it, and I'm trying to remember a keyword that would help me find it, and I might just have to abandon this one because this didn't have to do, let's see, I think I may have deleted it. Maybe. Okay, here's one. There's this dude. Now, I'm not saying this guy's a troll at all. This guy shows up on a lot of videos. He leaves a lot of good comments. Sometimes I'm like, yo. Sometimes I'm like, that's a good comment. So, and that's like that with anybody. I'm not going to agree with anybody 100% of the time, and neither are you. Anyway, this guy, Glenn Beedshaw 727 says, are you starting to wonder if you didn't blow over everything and starting to feel like maybe the landlord was just incompetent, but had the best intentions? He came in to check, make sure you had hot water, which shows that obviously he had been feeling bad about it. And this is in relation to me talking about the day that the landlord came in, took the security camera off the wall of my place, and walked over and felt the hot water to see if the hot water was running. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Are you fucking kidding me? I should say nice things about this fucking slumlord that I don't even want to talk about this anymore because it's in the past. This is day 13 in my new house. But I'm going to address it because this came up in a comment, and I believe the comment was 18 hours ago, so it's fresh. If the guy was just coming into my apartment or the tiny house to check the hot water because he felt so bad about everything, how come the first thing he did was reach up and take the security camera off the wall and put it face down so that I can't see what the fuck he's doing? If all he wanted to do was go check the hot water, turn around and leave, which is really all he did, because I watched him with the other cameras. This is why this is dumbfounding me. Why the fuck do you gotta be all shady about it? Number one. Number two, the fucking dude didn't fix the hot water for 3 months. 3 months. February, March, April. All the way. It was April 30th when he fixed the hot water, okay? If he had good intentions, how come on April 3rd, 2 months into a 6-month lease, how come the guy threatened me? First of all, he had already been bringing people in for tours of the apartment, but I wasn't 100% cued in onto what was going on. 12 days before April 3rd, he had put up an ad on Craigslist and started showing the place to people, lying to me, saying that people were coming to look at the hot water situation and inspect and give them a price and stuff like that. No, all those people were taking a tour of the place because he put it up for rent. I hadn't even been in the place for 2 whole months yet. And on April 3rd, I pay my rent for April, and on the 3rd, he says, you owe me more money for rent at the end of the month. And I said, the fuck I do, I'm on a 6-month lease. That lease says this is what the price is. You don't just get to change the fucking lease in the middle of the fucking lease and raise the rent on somebody. That's what a legal document, that's a contract. The contract, the lease said that I'm supposed to have functioning hot water. The lease said that I'm supposed to pay X amount of money for 6 months. So if he had come at me and tried to raise the rent after 6 months, I would have been like, okay, you have the right to do that at that point. There's nothing I can do about it. This place here, a year from now, a year from the day I moved in, he could say I'm raising the rent a couple $100 a month or whatever. There's nothing I can do about that. If he doesn't sign another lease and it goes to a month-to-month situation, which is what the lease actually states that I signed for this place, After 12 months, it becomes a month-to-month lease. In that case, he can raise the rent without warning. That's one of the drawbacks of having a month-to-month lease. A month-to-month situation means he can change the rent pretty much whenever he wants, with like 30-day notice, whatever the law specifies. But it also gives me the right to get the fuck out of here with only a 30-day notice, and I'm not breaching any contract. Third, this fucking landlord, not only was he bringing people in for tours before he even tried to raise the rent on me, telling people it was going to be available at the end of the month before he even tried doing that to me. So he was, I signed a 6-month lease, and 2 months into the lease, he's bringing people into the property without telling me, with the express intent and telling these people that it'll be available at the end of the month because he's getting rid of the tenant that's in there. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Are you fucking kidding me? I should give this motherfucker the benefit of the fucking doubt? Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, for real. Who the fuck would do that? I did give this motherfucker the benefit of the doubt for 2 whole months. Go back and watch the videos. I was pissed off that I didn't have hot water, and I just kept saying, well, you know, I kept saying what you're saying in this fucking comment, that maybe he has good intentions, but he's incompetent. But that changed. That changed after he started doing the other shit that he did. And on top of that, he just feels like he can come into your place anytime he wants. He never fucking told me, ever. He never gave me advanced warning when he was coming into that place to do anything. After the April 3rd situation. He came in there over and over and over again, and I have him on camera. He would just let himself in and look around, and he never went through my stuff. He never like opened boxes, started pulling. Like, I would have got him, but he did go in there. He felt like he was allowed to just waltz around your apartment whenever the fuck he wants because he's the landlord and he has a key and he can just go over there while you're at work whenever he wants. And then it got to the point where he's like, I'm going to go in there and rip the camera off the wall, and then I'm just going to go check the hot water. But why the fuck do you, if that's all you're doing, why do you got to rip the fucking camera off the wall? All right? So what he was doing on that day, other people have already put this in the comments, but I knew that day. He asked me to pay the rent early for May. And I didn't respond. I just didn't even answer him. Didn't answer the text message, didn't communicate with him at all. And now it's a few days later, and all of a sudden this dude is like, you know, it's like a week or two went by. This was like it was like the 18th of the month that he asked me to pay rent early, and I had just paid for this place. So I'm like, yeah, I already did. Next month's covered, buddy. Done. And so he decided to use checking the hot water as a pretext to let himself into my apartment while out, or a tiny house, whatever the fuck it was. He decided to let himself in knowing I'd be at work. Because it's easy to tell when I'm not there because the bicycles won't be on the porch. If both of the bicycles are out on the porch, that means I'm home. If the bicycles are inside, I'm at work. So he could just come out and look at the porch. And then he found, oh, he's gone. He decided to let himself in and then walk over and fuck around with the sink for a minute and turn around and leave. But he was looking to see if I had packed up my shit to leave. The funniest part about that is I didn't start packing. It was 3 p.m. the day before I moved when I started packing. I hadn't packed anything. I didn't do one iota of work. Did not lift one finger to pack anything until that job interview was over that day. 3 p.m. on Friday. And it's not like I had a ton of stuff. The landlord, the slumlord, kept making comments about how I have too much stuff. And I'm like, how do I have too much stuff when it took an hour and a half? It took a total of 2 hours to move. From when I started moving, 9:30 in the morning, and it was 11:30 when I was showing you a tour of this place for the first time, 2 hours after 2 hours after I picked up the first box, took it to the moving van, was when I shot the video of the tour of the place. I don't have too much stuff if it only took 2 hours to move everything. But anyway, he was a dick. He was a fucking piece of shit. And I don't have any sympathy for the guy at all. Fucking slime ball. Did I mention the criminal record and all that shit that went along with that guy? The scam artist? The fact that he fucking started fake companies and took money from people and then disappeared and got charged with multiple felonies for it? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about some other shit? The burglary, the prostitution rings, all the other shit that I found out as soon as I looked him up on the fucking website. And the only reason I was able to look him up on the Harris County website is because somebody posted his driver's license, a scan of his driver's license on the ripoff report website. And so that opened up the door for me to just find out everything. And I got the fuck out of there. I got the fuck out of there ASAP. I did not mess around. Yeah, you saw me complaining about stuff for about a period of 2 months. But you think I was just sitting there doing nothing about it? I busted my balls to get the hell out of that place. So, no, I don't know. I'm 16 minutes into this video, and no, I didn't blow everything over out of proportion or whatever, and feel like my fucking slumlord had the best intentions. You're out of your fucking mind with that comment, buddy. So, but anyway, you're cool. You're not a douchebag. You're not a troll. I would never put you in that category, but no, you were way off base there. Nobody in my situation, nobody, not even you. You would not have been in the situation that I'm in and put up with that shit from that fucking dude. And there's more that I haven't talked about yet. I need to kind of get my thoughts together because I just want to do it in one video and be done with it. And I'm not going to dwell on this guy. It's in the past. It's already in the past. I've got some stressful stuff. I've got the probation officer coming over tomorrow, and that's got me a little bit, He gave me 48 hours notice, okay? Oh, I'm going to come over on Friday morning sometime before lunch. Can you be home? Pretty, if he really wanted to, he could be like the Spanish Inquisition and dun dun dun. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. He could just show up with the fluffy pillows and the comfy chair and put the handcuffs on, take me back to fucking prison if he wanted to. So, but just the fact that he has that power, it's going to be nerve-wracking whenever they say they're coming over. But you have to keep in mind, he was like, he told me on Wednesday, hey, I'm going to come over on Friday and look at your new place that, please be there. He's polite about it and everything. So I got nothing to worry about, but I'll be in a better frame of mind when he's gone and that's over with. And it's a requirement that he has to do this. If I move, I'm supposed to, the requirement right now is that when I move, I'm supposed to tell him. And I told him once the lease was signed. When the lease was signed, I think I waited a day or so, but I signed the lease and then I told him, once I knew it was final, we're done, I told him I'm moving. And then, anyway, so we're gonna, since we're talking about living in a home and home ownership versus renting, of course, so first of all, you asked me, do I want to be a quote-unquote homeowner when you don't actually own your home? Yeah, duh. Of course I do. I don't want to rent. I don't want to be a renter from a renter the rest of my life. The guy I'm renting this place from, he rents this place from the government and probably from the bank, or at least he's making payments. Rent to own. It's a rent-a-center. It's like going to Rent-A-Center when you buy a house, right? You go to the bank, you take out a loan, you pay the bank a whole bunch more money than the place is worth in interest over time, but it puts it in your hands. it's unrestricted property. It's pretty free and open what he can do with this property. I'm watching it. I'm living in it. The zoning is very lax here. I would love to own a piece of property just like this and kind of do what he's doing with it. I mean, it gives me ideas when I sit here and look at what's going on with this place and what these guys do, and just, you know, I know he's got a really nice house because I saw his address on the lease and I looked it up, and it's in the gated community that blocked my way from my place to Walmart. There was I have to go down the route. In my old place, I would have to go down the Route 45 access road with no sidewalks or anything else in order to walk to Walmart. I did it one time, and it was so miserable I couldn't stand it. Walking to Target to do the grocery shopping was more tranquil. And you've seen videos of how tranquil that was. But it was better than going to Walmart, because that route, and I posted a video of it one day. When I went to Walmart, I posted a video while I was walking. Now, there was another way to go to get to Walmart, but it's through a gated community, and the gates are locked. You can't even walk the sidewalk. So you can't walk through that community. You can't walk down that street to get to Walmart. But it would have been about the same distance, but it would have been a quiet, peaceful walk. But it's this kind of area. It's the area I'm living in. And I think, you know, if I could do it, so would everybody else that lives here who walks to and from places. That neighborhood would be a walking traffic. People would probably drive through that neighborhood to go to Walmart instead of taking the crappy roads. So I can understand why there's gates at both ends of the community. I'm not arguing, you know, it's they can do what they want, but it sucked for me. But anyway, let's get back to, should I own a home, or, you know, should I rent my home from the government and the banks? And then when I pay the bank completely, when I get done paying for my washer and dryer on Rent-A-Center, can I, you know, keep paying rent to the government? And so this guy, Dave Gast, he's a cool dude. You know, we've had conversations back and forth. You're not a troll. I don't hate on I hate the trolls, but we know who the trolls are on this channel. You're not a troll at all. You just like to have, you're like the devil's advocate. We're going to have an argument. You hate Donald Trump. You're a lifelong Democrat, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we can get along. If anything, you're challenging me when I say I hate all the Democrats, when I really don't. But I'm sick and tired of what the party leadership is promoting these days. But I'm not a big fan of the Republicans either. So let's just move on. Says, Adam, you know I'm not a hater. Just said that. Just made sure we're in agreement here. But I don't agree with your you never own your home thing. At 59 years old now, we paid off our $750,000 custom home at 54 years old. A major accomplishment coming from a welfare family growing up. $7,000 a year in taxes. It's much better than renting, plus equity and privacy. They can't run our beautiful town for free. It's like, okay, so what you're telling me is that you just told me that you pay $583 a month to rent your house from the government. That's not insignificant. I mean, it's probably a really nice place to rent for $583 a month compared to, you know, I'm paying more than that to rent this place. So you're doing better. I'm not going to argue about that. But if you miss a few of those rent payments, someone else is going to be living in that house you paid off after you get evicted by the government. And to say, you know, now he chimes back. It's the American system. Is the town supposed to run itself? I understand your point, but that's the way it is. You can't change it. We can have our different views. Hope you're enjoying your new place. So yeah, we can have our different views. And I'm just making a point. I'm just being the devil's advocate. I'm not even saying you're wrong, dude. I'm just saying that look at it from a different point of view. So you pay the taxes, the rent payment to the government with money that you were already taxed on when you made it. So when you made the money, they took a third of it to pay for the town and to pay for the government and all the bullshit that they do. And then you have to take that money that you made and pay the tax again. You got to pay them again from that. And then every time you go and buy groceries, I think you live in a liberal state, so they probably don't tax the groceries. Do they tax clothing and other essentials? Pennsylvania don't tax clothing and certain groceries. Texas doesn't have an income tax, but they have wicked sales tax. It's bad. They don't tax groceries, but they tax just about everything else in the grocery store. So if you buy a household thing, cleaning supplies and shit like that, you'll get taxed, but food, no. But anyway, you make your money. They take a third of it, gone, taxes. So you only get 2/3 of your money when you get your paycheck, when your direct deposit shows up. Then you got to pay rent to the government to keep your house. And then every time you go to the store to get your food, or maybe they don't tax your food, but every time you need something, you got to pay taxes on that. At what point do you get to keep your own fucking money? And where does this tax go? We're going to get into that in a minute. What are you paying for with your taxes? You're not actually paying for any of these government services. All these government services are paid for by money that the government borrows from the central bank, and you're just paying the interest on that loan when you pay your taxes. If you got rid of that central bank, the government could finance itself without taxing your income and without making you pay rent to the government. They do it with sales taxes, tariffs, and other things like that. That's how the United States actually used to operate before the central banks took over. Every time the Federal Reserve Bank is the third example of a central bank in the United States, but every time the central bank has been defeated, the country's gone to making their tax money from tariffs and sales taxes and use tax, so that you don't pay the tax until you buy something. So the money that you make, you keep. The land that you buy, you own. But you pay a tax whenever you go out and buy something. Whenever you pay for a good or a service, you might pay a tax on top of that, and that's what the government uses to fund itself. But you get to choose whether you pay that tax or not by going without the thing that whatever it is that you needed. You want to go and buy a fucking car, you pay a tax on the car, you pay sales tax on the car, etc. So they can fund the government without taking your income, and they can do it without you having to pay rent to the government to keep your home that you worked your whole fucking life to pay off, but never actually own. You get into a situation where you can't make your $583 a month rent payment to the government. Guess how long you're going to be able to live in that home before they throw you out in the fucking street when you're 75 years old? About a year. So anyway, I said back to the dude, I just want to make sure everybody knows that I'm aware that renting a home from the government is still a better situation than renting a home from a landlord who in turn rents the home from the government and just marks up all the costs to make it profitable for him by charging you more than what it costs him. So whatever I'm paying in rent for this place, the landlord's probably bringing in a few $100 a month at the end of the day, but it all depends on the situation. But for every $1,000 a month you pay in rent, the landlord's probably making $200-300 by the time it's all said and done. And then when there's a major repair, boom, that whole year's profit's gone. So the only thing that they're really doing is holding equity in a property at that point. And the only way to really make money as a landlord is to own lots of properties. That's why the people that really do the landlord game, they buy properties like crazy. because you're only making a little bit off of each one. It's collectively what makes you rich. And it's not just the collective income per month, but it's that collective equity that you're building in the value of all those properties that in turn, at one point you might just get to a point where you're like, I want to retire. I don't want to be a landlord anymore. You sell all your properties and boom, you scoop up all that equity and now you're rich. But it's not liquid. When you have all those assets and you have all those properties and you're renting them all out and you're not really making a big profit every month, especially when you consider all the bullshit that you put up with being a landlord, shitty tenants that don't pay the bills, having to do evictions, repairs, major repairs, all the things that go into it, the property insurances, the bank payments, the mortgage payments, all the stuff. At the end of the day, how much are you really left with? But you're building something. Anyway, so another guy. But anyway, I'm going to keep on with this anyway. He says, unfortunately, taxes are a way of life in America. And that's that whole mentality of like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. We're just going to have to put our heads down and do what we're told because, I know a bunch of rich people go and rape children on private islands, but there's nothing we can do about that. We're just going to have to let them keep raping our kids because if we complain about it, then look what happened to you, Adam. Look what happened to you when you talked about the rich people and the FBI letting rich people rape children on private islands. Look what they did to you. They ruined your life. And yeah, they ruined my life to make an example out of me to scare the rest of you into shutting your fucking mouth. That's what they do. They can't shut everybody up at once. They can take one or two people here and there, make a big public spectacle about destroying that person, which they did to me, and then in turn, they get everybody else to fall in line and shut the fuck up. But, there's that scene in the movie Ants where the bug, the ruling class bugs we're talking about, it's just one ant, who fucking cares? And the leader of the bug, the roaches, whatever they fucking, I don't know, I don't watch cartoons much, but the leader of the bad guys said, if we let one ant get away with this shit, then they're all gonna stand up. And what do you think's gonna happen when all of them stand up for their rights when they outnumber us 100-1? We're not going to be able to stop it. That's what you're watching right now. And when I hear people, not just you, but you can't change it, there's nothing you can do about it, it's the way it is, it's the way it's always been, it's the way it's going to be, just shut your mouth, put your head down, do what you're told, punch your time clock, don't complain, blah, 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 blah. You're the fucking ant that the roaches stomped on and you're too afraid to fight back. Even though we outnumber the roaches, we ants outnumber the roaches 1,000-1. And if all of us ants would just stop living in fear and stand up, it wouldn't have to even be violent. There was nothing that those motherfuckers could do if we all stood up and said we've had enough of your fucking bullshit. It wouldn't have to be riots in LA. It wouldn't have to be violent. If everybody would just stop watching football and put down the fucking beer bottle for a minute and stand up for your fucking rights, this shit would be over in a week. It would be over in a week. The people that raped the fucking kids on Jeffrey Epstein's island would be hanging from a rope or in a prison cell, one or the other. Due process takes a long time, so they'd probably be sitting in a jail cell. Let's leave it at that. But it would happen. It would happen tomorrow. They know who raped the kids. They're protecting the elite pedophiles that raped the kids. I mean, look at it. Look at what's going on right now. Every time people put pressure on these assholes in charge right now, the Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Blondie, and fucking dumb bimbo, all these fucking people, they're backpedaling, making excuses. Dan Bongino, he had his podcast every fucking day talking about we need to bring those people to justice. We need to bring those people to justice. And now he's in the position to bring those people to justice. And what does he do? He gets on Fox News and he's like, Jeffrey Epstein definitely killed himself. I saw the video. Oh, you saw the fucking video when we've been being told for the last 5 to 8 years that the video cameras weren't working and the guards fell asleep, and now you're saying you saw the fucking video. He definitely killed himself. Definitely killed him. Those two people, when they did that Fox News interview, looked like they were scared to death that their families were being held up at gunpoint while they were on the Fox News interview, and if they say the wrong thing, the trigger gets pulled. Did you look at that? But anyway, if all the fucking people in our country who are being stomped on right now were to stand up at once and stand up for the right things, we'd win. We'd win in a week. Because we outnumber the ruling class by thousands to 1. If not more than that. So anyway, back to the home front. Floor Guy, 1985. You're a cool dude. I've seen you comment a few times. I'm not reading any comments today from a troll. So we'll just keep that. I'm just going to keep saying it. But anyway, gave me some thoughts here that I thought are worth sharing. Because I'm sure it's the video where I was talking about the median income versus the median home prices and all that kind of stuff. And you can do this as quickly as I did. You can look the stuff up on Google using AI or just plain old Google searches. Do the research yourself. You'll find the same information I found. Anyway, Floor Guy says, as you know, home values go up with time. This more than offsets the repairs. So your home's value goes up, but the money that you put in fixing it, the value going up of your home offsets the repairs you put in. And I'd even go so far as to say myself that if you do modifications to your home, like you build a garage, you add to it, you make the home better, you will increase the value of your home just by doing those things. I mean, look at the house flippers on TV. They buy a house for 30 grand, they put 20,000 in renovations, and then they sell it for 150, and they walk away with a profit by flipping it fast. You know, some condemned piece of shit falling apart house, $50,000, they do a $30 renovation, they spend $80,000 and sell it for $150. They walk away with a profit just by fixing the thing up and making it move-in ready for somebody else, so that somebody else doesn't have to go through the hassle of doing the gutting and the renovation. So if you do that, yeah, you will make a profit. But even if you own your home for a long period of time, yes, your home goes up in value over time. Or does it? That's what I want to look at here. Floor Guy says, yes, even after your home is paid in full, there's property taxes, but that's a lot cheaper than rent. Well, no shit. Because when you rent a place, you're paying the property tax and some extra. So I'm paying the property tax for this place. But if we're talking technicalities here in Texas and where I'm at right now, this is one of several small homes on a single piece of property. He's paying property tax on the piece of property. That's probably going up every time he puts another building on it. And there's probably, Texas has some really fucked up property taxes too. Sales tax and property tax, they get you. There's no income tax in Texas, but they'll get you on the backside when your property taxes due. So they're still getting theirs. They just do it different. And it's not the only state without an income tax. But anyway, he says the average apartment up in my shithole state of Minnesota, definitely a shithole state, I've been there, is over $1,400 a month. And so your $585 a month rent payment to the government for a house that you, quote unquote, you hold the deed to the home, That's better than paying $1,400 a month for a shithole apartment in Minnesota. I mean, who would even want to live in Minnesota? I wouldn't want to pay $50 a month to live in Minnesota. Even if I could live in a mansion in Minnesota for $200 a month, I'd have to think about it, because I'd have to be in Minnesota. And so anyway, I said in response to this comment, do you ever think about that your home goes up in value, not because the home became more valuable, but because your currency, the fake fiat currency, the American dollar, goes down in value, and therefore everything costs more. That's why you could buy a home for $5,000 back in 1950, and now that house costs over $500,000. The home's value didn't really go up during that time compared to how much value the dollar lost during that time. Back in the 70s, you could buy a bottle of Coca-Cola for a nickel. And now it costs $1.50 to $2 for that same bottle of Coca-Cola. And the Coca-Cola back in the 70s was better because it was made with real sugar. But does that mean that the value of that Coca-Cola went up over time? No, it means the value of your dollar tanked. And now it costs $1.50 to buy something that used to be a nickel. Because your dollar isn't worth anything. If you put a fucking $1 million in a mattress back in 1950 and went to spend it today, you wouldn't be able to buy anywhere near the amount of shit that you could have bought back then. Because the dollar isn't worth a fucking thing. And don't take my word for it. A lot of you people like the founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson, the second president of the United States, said, quote, "If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and the corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered." That's what Thomas Jefferson had to say about it. And right now we're looking at the situation where Gen X and everybody who was born after Generation X are going to end up homeless on the continent that the baby boomers left to us. And I'm not blaming the baby boomers. Like the round table secret society of baby boomers got together one day and said, how can we fuck over our kids? Let's see. No. It's just that the process that the banks and the corporations came up with to deprive the people of all property became successful around the time that Generation X was born and beyond. So everybody born in the 70s and beyond are living worse than the baby boomers. The baby boomers, that was the end of the party. That was the end of the party where you could actually, live better than your parents' generation. Just like this guy said, he bought a $700,000 house when he grew up in a family that was living in poverty and welfare. Can't do that anymore. You really can't. I mean, you can, but it's not like you can just go out and get some blue-collar job. Here comes my blue-collar thing. You can't just go out and get some blue-collar factory job and then go buy a fucking house and put your life together. You're going to be living in squalor and poverty for the rest of your life unless you do something. You can be a blue-collar worker and make millions of dollars. You can be extremely successful as a blue-collar worker, working with your hands. You can be a carpenter. You can be a machinist. You can be an auto mechanic. There's all kinds of things that you can do that's hands-on, blue-collar kind of work, but that doesn't mean that you have to be poor, right? So that people got all mad at me for some blue-collar comments a couple of weeks ago or whatever the fuck. I don't care. But that's what I meant about the blue-collar mentality. Going to get a job at a factory back in the 50s would provide you with enough income to buy a house, take care of your family, your wife could stay home and take care of the kids, and you could retire someday. Now, if you go and get that job in the factory, you're living in squalor, you're barely able to pay your fucking monthly bills, your wife probably has to go get a job, and the kids got to go to daycare, or you just can't even afford to have a kid in the first place. You're basically one step away from poverty if you're not already living in poverty, and in a lot of cases, you're probably collecting welfare on top of it because you're not making enough money at your job to live, so the government kicks in some welfare for you and some food stamps and whatnot, even though you have a job. And if you are in the mindset of that's all you can do and there's nothing more for you out there, then yeah, that's where you're going to stay the rest of your life, and you're never going to be able to pick yourself up, and you're never going to be able to do anything about it. You think if I decided, well, I guess all I can do is work at a bakery for $10 an hour, that's all I'm going to be able to do, that's how it is, there's nothing else I can do. I just got turned down for a $200,000 or $120,000 a year job. I had the contract in my hand. All I had to do was sign, and all I had to do was pass a background check. And once they found out, it was rip. I can get those jobs all fucking day. I can't keep them. I can't keep them. But you think I'm gonna just sit back and say, well, I guess that's just how it is. I guess I'm just going to have to work at the bakery making $10 an hour, struggling to survive into my 70s and 80s because, when I'm using a fucking walker to walk around, am I going to be working at the fucking bakery trying to survive? Like, no. I'm going to figure something out. I'm not going to just accept the status quo and accept my lot in life. That's the whole point that I was making. And I know a lot of people who have the blue collar careers, they work in a factory and they have no ambition to do anything else. They struggle financially. They can't make their Dodge Ram truck payment. They can't, they have a house, they're underwater. They can never get ahead. But they just keep going to the same job, doing the same thing day after day after day. They don't even try to find something better. That's the mentality that I'm talking about. Take the skills that you have. Take something that you're good at. Fine, you like working with your hands. You're the backbone of America, whatever the fuck you are. If you're driving a truck, a big rig for a company, and you're not making shit. I know a big rig is a very expensive thing to buy. But is there a way that you could get from driving the big rig for some company that doesn't pay you a jack shit to owning a big rig? Now you're making the money to, is there a way to get it from here to there? If that's what you want to do. If you want to be a truck driver, you don't have to take the bottom of the barrel truck driving job and keep it for the rest of your life. You can climb the truck driver ladder until you have a fleet of your own trucks and you don't even drive the fucking things anymore and you just take the money. Blue collar. So anyway, back to the house. Do you really own your house? Does your house really go up in value? I don't fucking know. Let's take a look. If you look at the dollar since 1913, when the Federal Reserve Bank was created, has lost 98% of its value. And it might even be, by now, it might be 99% of the value. 1 penny. 2 pennies, let's just say 2 pennies right now, what you could buy in 1913 for 2 pennies, a shave and a haircut, 2 bits, 2 pennies would buy you something that costs $100 now because the value of the dollar has dropped by 98% since the Federal Reserve Bank took over the currency of the United States. If you hired an accountant or a financial advisor to handle your financial picture, and they turned around and lost 98% of the value of your assets and portfolio, would you have fired them by now? Would you have told them to get the fuck out? Would you have told them to hand over the keys, get the fuck out of here, I'm done with you? How much of your value would they have to lose before you would say they're fired? I would assume 20% would be enough. 10% might be enough. But you're going to let The central bank of the United States, you're going to allow these fucking people to railroad us to the point where they've lost 98% of the value of our money and they haven't gotten fired yet? Like, let that sink in. Let that sink in for a minute. It's not the government. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a part of the government. It's a privately owned corporation, just like Federal Express is not part of the government. It's a company where they put the name Federal and Express together to tell you a bunch of bullshit because it's not part of the government and it's not Express. It's not that fast. FedEx fucks up so much compared to the other ones, but that's just my experience. We'll just leave it there. If you had an accountant or a financial advisor that lost 98% of the value of your money, how long would it have taken you to fire that motherfucker and hire someone competent? In 1950, the median family income in the United States was $2,990 per year. That's the median family household income. In 2025, the median family, the household income in the United States is now $75,580. That is a 2,427.76% increase. So it sounds like, oh, we make a hell of a lot more than we used to make in the 50s. Okay, do we? We make 2,427% more money now. That sounds good. Okay, sure. In 1950, the median value of a home in the United States was $7,354 for a home. In 2025, the national average home price is projected to be around $503,000 and $800 on top of that, $504,000 for the average price of a home. That's a 6,750% increase in the value of a home. So yeah, your home value went up, just like you were saying, the value of your home did go up. But the value of your income didn't. The value of your income went up 2,400%. The value of the home went up 6,750%. That's a significant difference. The pace of wages and the pace of income does not keep up with the pace of housing increase. So you're thinking, oh, well, that's because the houses get more valuable over time, blah, blah, blah. They're not making more land and there's more people and less land. And okay, fine. Let's talk about the pace of housing has significantly outpaced the growth of income. Well, in 1950, an ounce of gold was $34.71 per ounce. In 2025, the price of gold is now $3,384.12 as of today. That's a 9,649% increase in the price of gold. Okay? So back in 1950, if you could buy a house with bars of gold, your house in 1950 would have cost 212 ounces of gold. In 2025, your house would cost 149 ounces of gold. So think about that for a minute. If you're using gold to buy the house, your house is actually worth less in 2025 than it was in 1950. Because in 1950, it took 212 ounces to buy the house. Now in 2025, it takes 149 ounces to buy the house. It's a basically a 30% decrease in the price and the value of your home when compared to the value of gold. So your house isn't even worth as much if we're talking about in comparison to gold. Your house is 9,649% more, your house is 6,750% more valuable when you're comparing it to dollars, but it's actually 30% less valuable when we're comparing it to gold. And is that because gold is less valuable now than it was back in the day? No, gold is 9,640% more expensive now than it was then. That outpaced the increase in the house. The price of gold went up higher and more higher than the house. Gold is more valuable than your home. And so, but that's the comparison right there. Your home actually went down in value in comparison with gold by 30%, but it went up 6,750% when you're using American dollars. Because the price of gold, the increase in the price of gold has significantly outpaced the increase in housing prices. And let's not even add to that the increase in income. So in some ways you could say your house is actually worth less now than it was back then, because it's all a juggling act with this fake fucking money. Now here's an even better one. In 1950, if your pay, your $3,000 a year, if you were paid with gold bars, gold nuggets, gold coins, whatever, you made 86 ounces of gold in 1950. Okay? Now, if you were paid in 2025 with ounces of gold instead of American dollars, instead of your money going up by 2,420% compared to 1950 to 2025, you only make 22 ounces of gold now for the same job. That's a 75% decrease in your pay. So when you peg everything to the value of gold, which really doesn't change over time, you can actually see what the fuck is going on with your situation. Your home is less valuable, your work is less valuable, your money's less valuable. Gold, generally, they say, an ounce of gold, they say, this is a thing about an ounce of gold that's been true for the test of time. An ounce of gold will buy a gentleman's custom-tailored suit of clothes from head to toe, suited and booted, top-notch clothing from the history of mankind. So if you were in Rome and you had an ounce of gold, you could waltz into the tailor and you could get the top-notch toga with the gold tassels, with the beautiful leather sandals and all the trimmings and the little thing around your head and all the stuff that goes with the Roman elite attire. You know, the silk robe and the gold thing and the sandals, all of it. Today, you can get the custom-made Armani suit with all the bells and whistles, the perfect stitching, customized in every way, shape, and form. You know, designer shoes, proper cufflinks, gold cufflinks, whatever. You know, you can get suited and booted for an ounce of gold. Throughout the history of time, the gold doesn't really change in value. Everything around it does, while they manipulate the financial system around it. But the value of that ounce of gold doesn't really, yes, it changes, and no, it doesn't change. Because obviously you could buy a house in 1950 with 12 ounces of gold, and now you would only need 150 ounces of gold for the same house. So that's a 30% difference there. But is it, what's really going on there? And so there's other things that you could peg with how much would a bar of gold get? How many Coca-Colas could you buy with a bar of gold back in 1970? How many Coca-Colas could you buy with the same bar of gold today? The difference between the number of Coca-Colas you could buy with that same ounce of gold is going to be less significant than the differences between how many bottles of Coca-Cola can you buy for $1,000 when Coke cost a nickel and now Coke costs $1.50 a bottle. So that's the gist of what I wanted to get into today. And it's not because, it's just something to think about. Something to think about. Is your shit Do you really make more money than you ever made? I got to a point in my career I was making more than my stepdad. But my stepdad was making that money in the 1989, and here for me it was 2022. So I was still making less than him. I would have had to be making over $200,000 a year to make what he was making when he made $100,000 in 1989. And we didn't live large either, because he had an ex-wife and got slam dunked in child support court, and so pretty much 3/4 of the money he made went to her. And so we lived like shit while she lived lavish and large. So just because you make the money doesn't mean you get to keep it. But that's a whole nother story, that's a whole nother thing. But the difference is, when I started making decent money, it still wasn't the money he was making, even though it was more than he was making. And everything costs more. You could buy, back in 1989, how much would a full cart, overflowing cart of groceries cost? $50? Now, a fucking basket of groceries is more than $100. So, how is your house? Is your house really more valuable today than it was when you bought it 30 years ago? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. On paper, it's worth way more dollars than it was back 30 years ago, because the dollar isn't even worth the fucking paper it's printed on anymore. They're not even going to make pennies anymore, because a penny is so fucking worthless that it costs more to make a penny than the penny's even worth. So now Donald Trump's like, fuck it, we're not going to make pennies anymore. Why? All the transactions are going to be electronic anyway, and if you pay with cash, you'll just end up paying. I guarantee you, if you ever pay cash at the store, this is going to be another way to push you into cashless society, is when they get rid of coins. But let's say we start with pennies. Anytime the transaction's like $1.02, you're going to have to pay $1.05 to settle the transaction. The store that you're buying whatever it is from, they're not going to round down, they're going to round up. And then when we get rid of nickels, then it's going to be, if it's $1.02, you're going to have to pay $1.10 if you're paying cash, but you can pay $1.02 on your credit card. And then they get rid of change, and now if it's $1.05, you're going to have to give them $2 cash. Or you put it on your card and you only pay $1.05. That's what this is all about. But it's because the money's fucking worthless. And until we abolish the Federal Reserve Bank and stand up to these fucking people and say we're done, you lost 98% of the value of our fucking money. Can we fire you now? Can you get the fuck out of here? Stop telling everybody how fucking smart you are and how you went to Harvard and all this other bullshit. You lost 98% of our fucking money. Get the fuck out. You're fired. Get the fuck out. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do to these people. But, Americans are too busy drinking beer and watching football to give a fuck about that. But that beer costs a hell of a lot more than it did. Your Lazy Boy costs $2,000 now. It used to be, a few $100. And the big screen TV you're watching it on probably cost a couple grand. Especially if you got the Ultra 4K, because everybody needs the latest, greatest TV that takes up their whole fucking wall now. I got a TV for less than $100 delivered to my house from a dude on Facebook, and it's fine. I'm loving it. I'm gonna watch a movie at night when the sun goes down and there's no glare on the screen, and I'm ready to retire for the night. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna veg out. It's gonna be my relaxation time before I go to bed. And it could be a YouTube video, it could be a movie, it could be a show. It is what it is. But anyway, that's what I had to talk about today. Not so much of an update on the place. That's pretty much the same as it's been. I don't think the sun's coming out yet, but the weather is starting to... We've had a lot of storms in the last couple of days. I'm on Amazon. I'm looking at waterproof socks and trying to see, can I do anything? Because we're in the rainy season now, and I'm thinking it might make sense to get to up my rain game for the cycling, maybe even get some clip-on fenders. do whatever I have to do to try and stay dry on the bicycles. Maybe turn the Red Rocket into a rain commuter, and the Silver Bullet is the dry day rider. I don't know right now. I think, one day at a time. I just don't want to, everything costs money, and I have 20 different categories of things that I'm trying to do right now. And so right now I just took a break between tasks, recorded a video for you all. I'm gonna grab a quick bite to eat. I'm almost out of food. I gotta go grocery shop. I hope the rain cools off so that I can go get some food from the grocery store today. And but yeah, as far as the house goes, I got the TV, the love seat and footstool. I think that's a pass. Nope. We'll just wait until next month. Hard drive space is becoming a more critical thing right now, and I kind of have a I think I'm going to get one 14 terabyte drive from Best Buy because it's the best price, and I'm going to use a 5 terabyte drive or I think I have a 2 terabyte drive that's empty right now and not really being used, and so I'm going to mirror the 14 terabyte drive. I'm going to mirror it to a 2 or a 5 terabyte drive, and I'm going to use the 5 terabyte drive or the 2 terabyte drive as a backup to the 14. And that will buy me a month, maybe 2 months, to where, okay, now that 2 terabyte or that 5 terabyte drive is starting to get full because I have 2 to 5 terabytes worth of crap on the 14 terabyte drive. That'll be the day that I go get a second 14 terabyte drive to use as a mirrored backup to that. And I also found a cloud-based storage solution that'll be $9 a month, and I can back up an unlimited number of files and stuff to it. The only drawback is in a disaster recovery situation where I have to recover all of it, if I have more than 20 terabytes worth of stuff up there, it could be a nightmare to get it back. The company will send it to you on hard drives, but they can only send you 8 terabytes at a time. I think that's what it is. I have to look into it a little more deeply, but it could even be worse than that. But I'm going to say 8 terabytes at a time they'll send you back on a hard drive for free, and then you just return the hard drive. But I would have to do that multiple times to get all my stuff back. They also have a way you could download all of your stuff, but when you're talking about 20 terabytes of downloads, can you imagine how long that would take over an internet connection to download? So in this case, it's like a fail-safe. It's like if my house blows up in a hurricane and I lose everything, I'll still have it somewhere as long as I'm paying that bill. Back in the day when I was backing up files, I had a big hard drive in my house hooked up to my router, and then I had the other one out in the office. And so every day or every couple of days I would synchronize the two so that they had the same files on both. If the office burns to the ground, I still have my files in the house. If the house burns to the ground, I still have my files out in the office. Right now, I don't have the ability to keep hard drives in multiple buildings. So I have multiple hard drives. The only difference is the backup ones, I don't always leave, especially the larger backup one that I use for my photography, I don't leave it plugged into my Mac. It's separate. It just sits somewhere. When I synchronize them, I plug it into my computer with a USB cable, run the synchronization script, and then when it's done, I unplug it, eject the drive, and put it away where it goes. That way, at least it's hidden and it's not plugged into anything, so there's no electricity going through it, so a lightning strike or something like that shouldn't have too much of an effect on it. But the house could burn down, the house could be blown away in a hurricane or a tornado or who knows what. Things could happen. So off-site, having the files in another location somewhere in the cloud. All the cloud means, when you put something in the cloud, it just means you're putting stuff on somebody else's computer. Like, there's no cloud, there's no magical cloud in the sky that holds everything. When they say you're doing it on the cloud, it means you're putting something on someone else's computer. That's what it means. It just sounds cool to say the cloud. It's the cloud. It's not a cloud. It's somebody, you're putting shit on someone else's hard drive, on someone else's computer, and you're paying them for it. Sometimes. And in the case of free services like Google Apps and Gmail and shit like that, it's in the cloud. It's on a computer though. It's sitting your shit is on a computer in some building somewhere. It's not just magically in the ether, floating around in the sky. In fact, when you put stuff on the cloud, it's probably in 900 different places at once. And that's why whenever you put something on the cloud, it's there forever. It will never be, even if you delete it, it'll never be deleted. Every titty picture you ever sent a guy through a text message, that shit's in the cloud. Someone's spanking off on that one today. Even if you sent it to someone 10 years ago and you thought that thing's gone, someone at the NSA has it in their collection, and that's been passed around, and that's in the cloud. It's everything that goes to the cloud doesn't come back down. The moisture that goes up in the air to form the cloud doesn't come back down and rain. It stays in the cloud forever. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's what I had to talk about today. And we'll go from there. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.